Hey, what's going on? This will be a slightly special version of classical soldering, I guess. Instead of just soldering and having everything in silence, I thought I'd do a little intro and just show you. I was pretty excited for this because I saw it and it's one of those things I knew, wow, that looks cool, I have to have it. It is a Nixie clock kit that I ordered from a guy in Germany, and being unprepared, I actually don't remember the name of the guy, but in the description of the video, or maybe I'll annotate when I cut this video, I'll put a link to the website where you can get it. Because if this turns out to be as cool as it looks, then it's going to be really awesome. So I don't know if the big conundrum will be where do I put it once I'm done building it. But anyways, let's crack it open. I think this might be the first time I've ever received a package from Deutsche Post. So, here we go. Looks like it's padded really well, which is good since Nixie tubes are glass. And I got the optional, I think it's the GPS kit for it, that uses GPS to set the time automatically, which is pretty cool. So actually I'm going to go ahead and pull everything out of the box first because I don't have a very good camera setup, so I can't get a far enough back shot to get everything. And that's it. Okay, here's the acrylic, still has the protective covering on it. This looks, well, I think it might be acrylic with some kind of plating on it or something. It still feels like acrylic, but I guess maybe it's metal. I don't know. We'll see later. It's hard to tell while it's strapped to everything else here, but it looks like there's a PCB and then this top metal piece and then some acrylic. Looks like it's a laser cut. Did they send me 2 power adapters? Oh, maybe the GPS module is separate and doesn't, maybe it's a separate module you plug into it as like an expansion. Let's see. Garmin, that's funny because I actually live like 15 minutes away from Garmin's headquarters. It's funny that this came from Germany back to near its home. 5 volts, 1 amp out, which makes sense because it's USB. Let's see if this one is also a Garmin. Yep, Garmin. That is funny. Okay. These must be the Nixie tubes themselves. Yep. Maybe I can pull it out the other end. Ah, beautiful. Look at that. I don't want to touch it because, well, I really didn't do any preparation for this video. I just grabbed the box, cut it open with the camera rolling, so don't know if I'm supposed to touch these or not with bare hands. I remember, it could be a myth, I remember hearing back in the days before CFLs and LED lights that if you touch an incandescent bulb with your bare hands, your oils get on the glass and it's more likely to burn out, which I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me, I guess. Don't know why that would be the case. I can't think of a reason in regards to physics why that would be true, but because when light bulbs go out, I've never seen one just explode. They're always just, the filament burns out. So what would the oil on the outside have to do with the filament? I don't know. If anyone does know if that's a myth or not, post in the comments. I'm curious. I would like to know. Here are some goodies. Looks like some more acrylic parts. Well, let's get everything out of this bigger bag first, and then we'll dive deeper. Oh, that is cool. That is a really slick acrylic little project box thing, I guess you would call it. That's really, really nice quality. I'm actually going to remember this because I am in the process of ordering a laser cutter. So I'm going to be able to make stuff like this. And man, this is sweet. Hopefully it turns out in the video so you can see it. This is really, really nice looking. But if the GPS module looks this nice, just imagine what the clock's going to look like when it's done. And I'm not going to show you, so then it'll be a surprise at the end. Obviously, I could just post a picture, or if you, I guess if you want to cheat, you can go look it up. But what's the fun in that? For the assembly, just because I like to take my time and I like to check that everything showed up. I like to organize all my parts. I'm a little bit OCD. I'm not like officially diagnosed with OCD, but kind of like the people who probably are. I'm a little particular with how I like to lay things out and get everything ready. So if I didn't do this in time-lapse kind of fashion, or at least sped up 3 to 4x like I normally do in these kit soldering videos, this video could go on for a few hours possibly. And I don't want to have to deal with cutting 3 hours worth of video, because if you cut 3 hours worth of video, generally speaking, if you're doing it correctly, you're going to spend at least minimum 3 hours cutting it. Probably more, because you're going to go back and add annotations and yada yada. So I'm going to save you all that time by doing it how I normally do classical soldering, where I just speed it up 3 or 4x, and then yeah, maybe at the end I'll do some more actual audio, but for the actual build I'm just going to do it like how I've done all my other kit assembly videos. So here are some through-hole components. Actually, oh, looks like we do have an SMD part. Oh, there's a socket for it, so it doesn't matter. Huh, everything is through hole. That'll be cake. More Nixie tubes, little baby size ones. I'm guessing these are the colons that go between the hours, minutes, and seconds. Some resistors and resistor networks. I don't know. It says antenna, so I'm not quite sure what this is. I kind of remember, I'm not really huge into time or clocks, not like a clock nerd, but I mean I find them fascinating, but I do kind of remember there being some clocks that'll sync themselves over RF, so maybe that's that. So if that's that. Oh, excuse me. Allergies are killing me. So if that's that, then why do I need this? Maybe that's a German standard that we don't get over here in the States. I don't actually know. Who knows? But more acrylic parts. Very very high quality, it looks like. Some hardware. Looks like some standoffs, some rubber feet, and some machine screws. What do we have here? Looks like some extra long tactile buttons, USB mini jack, a little piezo speaker, I guess for alarm clock functionality, and then a TRS jack, I'm guessing for whatever this is, since it's got a headphone jack right there. Just, what is that? It looks like a little baby size relay, but I can't. Oh no, that's the jack. Sorry, I was looking. It's actually clear on the bottom, so you can see the innards. It kind of looks like the little spring contact inside of a relay, but then I saw the top and realized, oh, dope. Because those usually have a detector to know when the jack is in there, so that's probably what all that fanciness is in there. It'll make or break a connection. So more hardware, and looks like we have our capacitors. So this is very, very, very nicely organized to begin with. So this will make my OCD very happy. I've had other kits from China that you've already seen me assemble where everything is just thrown into a bag. And in fact, I have one kit, I should probably just show it and mention the username. They said they would send me the remaining parts. They sent me like a third of the parts, and then I opened a dispute, and then they said, okay, we'll send it, and it's been about a month, and they still haven't gotten it to me. So yeah, time to get back on eBay and get that taken care of. Well, Mr. Nixie, there you go. See? I was prepared. Just kidding. Wireless GPS modules for Nixie clocks. Setup, instruction, owner's manual. Oh, so those are, Curious, because I don't see... Maybe this is one, well, I'm guessing it's probably using onboard antenna then, because I don't see any connectors for an external antenna on here. So they do show the picture of that little thing, so I don't know what the heck that is. The English is very, very good, so... Hey, Germans are usually really good English speakers, so... This looks like the instructions just for the GPS kit. And we'll see what's the main manual. Oh, we ruined it with a picture. Maybe I should edit that out, so you don't get to see what it looks like until I fire it up when I'm done. So yeah, if this is blacked out, then I decided that you don't get to see it until the end. This is USB powered. I don't know what that is. IV-11 VFD clock. Jenny Reloaded is the model. But come on, don't cheat. You can't cheat. And look that up. Maybe those aren't colons. Those are mounted kind of low if they are colons. So maybe it's just a dot between it. Maybe it's an international thing. I'm really not... I've been to Germany, but I don't remember looking at any digital clocks. Most places you go, you know, restaurants and stuff have analog clocks, so maybe in Germany they just put a period between them, because you know the periods and commas and stuff are swapped with a lot of countries. Maybe their time format's a little different. I don't know. We'll find out. It's just showing you what all the buttons and LEDs are, and it's kind of cool because LEDs and the buttons are about, I think, well, they're not the same diameter, but they're pretty close. So you just laser cut out the holes for the LEDs to poke through, and same with the tactile push buttons. Acrylic is really handy, and I think I'm going to really enjoy having a laser cutter. Unfortunately, though, I'm going to have to hone my 3D designing skills before that's, or not even just 3D, well, yeah, I guess 3D, because I'm going to be having to design it in some kind of a, well, this isn't, no instructions? Oh, okay, well, I mean, that's fine. I'm sure everything on the PCB is marked, so. I might check their site just to be sure, because desoldering stuff really sucks. So it would be cool just to kind of at least have something to reference, but if not, that's fine. Guess I could look at the PCB. If it's really well commented, it doesn't really matter. I'm sure it's got a good silk screen on there. Wow, it's a really nice PCB. I like PCBs with black. Black mask. Let's see. You know, it's not, it doesn't mark everything with values. It just marks, you know, R11, R13, but I don't know what value those resistors are. So, where maybe Maybe you're supposed to go to their website and download a PDF or something that has the values of all the components, because without that, there will be no way for me to know possibly what resistor goes to which section. This just looks like instructions for the software. So that's not it. And then this is just the GPS instructions. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna hop online and take a look and see if there's not a PDF. Actually, let me check the box too. Maybe I'm being stupid and overlooked it. The instructions. Okay, it says I'm on their website and it says download of the assembly manual. Awesome. Cool. Well, I got instructions, so that'll help. Okay, well, I guess this is the part where I shut the audio off and get to assembly. And then when I'm done, I'll probably fire the old microphone back up, and then we'll take a look at the finished product. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the completed clock, and is it not gorgeous? Look at this thing. And yeah, that's the temperature sensor, the one-wire temperature sensor hanging out the bottom. So that way it's not inside the case heating up with the other components. But as you can see, it's a really, really sharp-looking acrylic laser-cut case, and I actually probably would like it better without the copper thing on the top. I shouldn't. It had a adhesive backing on it, and I unfortunately peeled that before I stuck it on here, so now it's not permanently stuck to the top, but it's on there pretty good. The picture on the website I thought had blue. The tubes had blue lettering, maybe, is what it looked like, but this is more of a green, kind of a blue-green, more green than blue, though. But it's fine, it still looks really good. And then there's an RGB LED underneath each tube. And right now I just have it set to, you can set a different color for each hour manually. It's RGB, so you can kind of, you can choose what color pretty precisely per hour. If you really want to get detailed, I guess, with your color selection, but I really don't care. I'd rather it just fades through all the colors. I think it looks cool having it just fade through. So that's the option that I went with, and despite the guy being German, his instructions were very clear. He had really good pictures and close-ups, and the menu system is actually pretty decent, considering, you know, the only output we have from this thing are some LEDs, which I made a mistake with those. I'll explain a little in a second, but you know, your only output is, you know, these 7-segment tubes. So considering that's how you have to view your menu system, I think he did a really, really good job. And the instructions has a little kind of like a, not really a truth table, but kind of like a little menu matrix that shows you. Over here there'll be a number, I think it's like 0 through 31 or 32, something like that, and then it'll show you for each one of those menu options, the value will be shown on these two. And over here I think it just has OP, meaning you're in the options menu. So then you can cycle through to change the wireless time setting, the baud rate. You can set leading zeros. You can set if it switches occasionally to the temperature or not. You can set it. You can set it to do all kinds of stuff. There's 31 or 32 options, I think, something around 30. So tons of customizability, and I think it's open source. It's a 4-layer PCB, and he had all 4 layers in the end of the build instructions, so I don't imagine he would have given that away if it weren't open source. But don't quote me on that. I'm not completely sure it is, but I believe it is. And I think I remember reading that the firmware is. Did he make that available? I thought I really should. I should really do my research before I start recording like this. But I could have sworn I read somewhere that it said that you can get the firmware if you want to customize it. But maybe that was just the translation saying that. Yeah, I don't know. That don't quote me on that either. Maybe it isn't, but I thought I read that somewhere. But either way, it's a pick, and you have the schematics, so you could write your own firmware to upload onto this thing if you wanted to. So that's pretty cool because both the IC, actually all 3 ICs, there's a little gate driver thing down here, and then you got a pick over here. They're all in sockets, so you could pop them out and reprogram them if you need to, so that's pretty cool. Just a really, really sharp looking kit though, and I'm fascinated with just tubes in general, Nixie tubes, vacuum tubes. In fact, over to the left of me I have a vacuum tube headphone amp kit that I never finished from a long time ago. I wish I would have started this channel before that. Then I would have had a video of me assembling it, but that was like a point-to-point assembly. I'll I'll probably do a video of it before I seal it all up. That's probably coming up, but I've just been really busy, hence this being the first upload I've done in a couple of weeks. I was on vacation, and then in-laws in town. Work's been really busy due to some security crap going down. It's a long story, but anyways, I'm back, and I'll be making more videos, so I just wanted to get this finished up. So this went smoothly as far as assembly, as you saw in, and you know, I didn't do any cutting. As far as assembly, start to finish, I assembled it, plugged it in immediately, and it worked. Then I ran into a funny thing. This temperature sensor is supposed to poke out of a hole. There's a perfect hole. It's kind of that half circle shape, which is, you know, the shape of the package, to where the temperature sensor can poke through once you assemble it. I didn't know that. I actually had it folded against the back of the PCB. And so the temperature was reading really high. And by the way, in the options menu, I believe there's compensation, so you can adjust that, as well as time offset. It gets the time, I think it just gets the GMT from the satellite via GPS, and then you can add offset to adjust it to your specific time zone in the options menu. But anyways, it was working, but then when I noticed the temperature sensor was not poking through like it should be, I was like, crap, I did it wrong, I need to take it back apart. When I took it apart and put it back together, well, I'd have to use pictures to show you, but over here there's a supercapacitor. I think it's like 1/3 of a farad, and it's for battery backup. So if well, not battery backup, but, you know, just a long enough backup to where, you know, if you have some short power outages, that it'll hold its time, which for me that's not important because I bought the GPS kit that you can get with this, so it'll automatically sync once a day or whenever you tell it to. But the spot on the PCB where you solder that on has it accommodates two different package sizes. And I believe the super cap that was included with mine was the bigger one. So there's two sets of holes, but the bottom of the capacitor, just like any electrolytic, is metal. And if you mount it too low, like against the PCB, it actually touches one of those other pins. Well, he had, for extra, I guess probably for extra current, I guess, he has you blob both sets of pins on the back side of the PCB. Well, when I did that, solder flowed through one of the pins and actually bridged to the back of the super cap. And it wasn't bridged to it, but when I took it apart to fix this so it'll poke through and put it back together, it must have put just enough force on it to where they now came into contact. And then it wouldn't power on after that. I put it back together and it wouldn't turn on, and it was just so confused. The RGB LEDs at the bottom would just barely flicker. And they kept flickering at what seemed to be about a 1 second interval. So what I did is hooked it up to my oscilloscope. Well, first thing I did is probed. He has a spot on the positive terminal of this capacitor, and then you just touch it on ground, which is anything is grounded, but he specifically has you check the TRS jack for the ground, and then you measure positive on the positive of this capacitor right here. And it's supposed to read 47 volts, which I'm guessing is the drive voltage for these tubes. Well, that didn't read anything. In fact, it was reading, the reading on my fluke was kind of jumping around. And so I hooked it up to the oscilloscope, and I noticed it was a 1 volt peak-to-peak pulse, and it was happening every roughly 800 milliseconds. So I was thinking, what the crap is going on? Well, then I came to realize, duh, that's actually the wall wart. He included, well, you saw at the beginning of this video, the two Garmin 5 volt mini USB wall warts or power adapters. It was just those things hitting the current limit, because this the super cap is basically shorting the rail. It was basically hitting the current limit of the wall wart, and the wall wart was rebooting itself. The switch mode circuit was, you know, detecting current overload, and it was rebooting itself, and it kept trying to fire back up, and that's what those pulses were every, you know, roughly 800 milliseconds. Without timing it with this oscilloscope, it seemed about, you know, a second apart. But I thought, is that the microcontroller trying to boot up? It was really confusing. But as soon as it clicked in my head, I was like, oh crap, that's actually the wall wart rebooting. So what I did was I hooked my bench power supply up to it to power it, and it went into constant current mode, which automatically told me, oh, something is going on. It's got to be a short. And sure enough, that thing was shorted on the back. So anyways, the guy, man, what was his name? It's German and it's hard to pronounce because I'm a Yank. I wish I had his name so I can give him credit. But anyways, I'll put his name. I'll put links to his website. So if you want to get this clock, I have no affiliation with him. So I'm doing this just because I think it's an awesome clock, and I think other hobbyists would be very interested in this. So I'm getting nothing out of making this video. I'm making this video because I want to. Let's see if I can find his name. Yeah. Jürgen Grau. I'm probably pronouncing that totally incorrectly, so Jürgen, if you ever watch this video, I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. I don't know any German, but anyways, I emailed him and said, hey, it's not turning back on, but it was turning on, and I kind of asked for some help. I said, you know, I told him the voltage wasn't reading, and it was acting like a short, and he told me to try a couple things. First thing he had me try was to, I did a little bit of due diligence. I did poke around a little bit, but it's a 4-layer PCB, so it becomes a little more difficult to troubleshoot some things. And plus, I'm not the one that designed it, so I'm not as familiar, and I knew it would be a lot quicker for him to be able to pinpoint where the problem probably is by giving him symptoms. Sure enough, he said unsolder one side of the inductor that's kind of down here, and that bypasses this MOSFET down here, and he thought that might be what's shorting out. And so I tried that, and then it was still going to constant current mode, drawing a ton of current. So then he said, nope, doesn't sound like that's it. He said, well, let's try the heat method, where you you basically plug it into power and then touch everything and see what gets hot. And I mean, it's a good method, and it worked. And I took it a step further. I actually got out the thermal camera. There's no point in having one if you don't use it, you know, so it's perfect for this type of thing. Plugged it into my bench supply, because obviously if the wall wart's resetting itself because it's hitting a current limit, it's not going to be pumping any current into here. As where my bench power supply will just go into constant current, and it'll keep pumping current into here and get something heated up. Sure enough, this side of the board was getting a little bit toasty. There's a diode down here that was getting a little warm. It seemed like the PIC microcontroller is getting a little warm, but it's kind of hard to tell because, you know, the resolution on those cameras isn't that great. Even the really, really expensive ones aren't that great. I have one of the, well, not cheap ones, but it's a cheaper model. It's not like the ones that cost what a car does. But anyways, the super cap was hot too. And sure enough, as soon as I sent him thermal pictures, I also sent him really, really close-up pictures that I took of the PCB, so he can see if I made any stupid mistakes. You know, wrong component in the wrong place, or polarity incorrect or something. And he immediately said, oh, I bet it's the super cap, you know, desolder it and resolder it with a millimeter gap between it and the PCB, or just remove it. So since I have the GPS time sync kit, I decided that I don't need the battery backup, and I just desoldered it. I might add it back on later if I feel the need to, but for now it's working, and I think I'm just going to leave it alone. So that's cool that he even included that to begin with. But anyways, being the guy that designed it, just like I assumed, he was really, really helpful and really quick at pinpointing where the problem was. And sure enough, he emailed me back after we figured it out and got it working. He said, oh, I looked at your non-thermal pictures, the close-ups, and he said I saw that solder had gone through the hole where you blobbed the two pins together and touched the back of the cap. So anyways, very, very friendly guy, super friendly, responded really quickly, very, very helpful, and you can tell that he takes pride in his design. So very big thumbs up to him. He was helpful, so if you buy one of these kits and you have any problems, I'm sure he would be very glad to help you. But I will warn you though, I wouldn't say you would want to buy this kit if you're a beginner. If you have a friend who is somewhat seasoned in electronics, and they're willing to do it for you, maybe you could get it. But if you're doing it yourself and you're a complete beginner and you've only soldered a couple simple kits, I don't think this is a good starting point. The kit is awesome. His instructions are great, especially considering English isn't his first language. The instructions are great, huge pictures, diagrams, schematics, everything. But that being said, it is a little bit more complicated, despite not having any SMD. There really isn't any SMD on here. I mean, there's an SMD inductor, but I mean, it's a giant package, one that's super easy to solder. Everything's through hole, so you'd think it's easy, but it's a little tricky. It is a little tricky, especially because there's resistors and inductors that have a similar package that you could confuse. The instructions they're enough, but they're not like something you'd buy from Adafruit where there's gigantic DSLR pictures of every single step where they're holding your hand the entire time, you know. It's not like that. It's precise and to the point, but it doesn't say put this one in this hole, put this one in this hole. It just says do the resistors first, but save these 3 resistors for later. Now do the inductors, now do the IC sockets. You know, it tells you what order to do the things, but not with a whole lot of detail like you get from other sites. So that could be a little difficult and challenging for some people. Either way, it's not a huge deal. If you're up for a challenge, go ahead, but I would say that you should at least be intermediate before trying to solder. This one's a little tricky, especially soldering these guys in, because I don't know if you've seen the back of these from when I was assembling it, but they have a ton of pins. You got to get it lined up, but if you don't make any stupid mistakes, it's really not that bad. Now, since I've assembled it and ran into a couple problems and I made a couple simple mistakes, if you do buy one, I will save you time. There's one thing I missed in the instructions, and you know, the instructions, it's a little, I'm not gonna say messy. It's not messy, it's just there's 2 languages in the instructions. It's not like there's one German instruction manual and then an English one. It's German and English in one manual, so it's kind of cluttered, and it was a little bit hard, and especially when I was trying to, with the camera sitting between me and when I'm soldering, it made it a little difficult, and I overlooked a couple things, and I'll tell you one of those things. Right here and here and here and here are LED holes, and actually I have them right here. He included spacers for your LEDs. The status ones, not the RGB ones, the status ones to show you if it's, you know, daylight savings is on, or if your alarm's on. You're supposed to use a spacer, that way your LED sits up higher and it sits flush with this top. And they're the flat top packaged LEDs that are meant to sit flush up here. But unfortunately, I didn't read that, and I mounted them flush to the PCB. It's okay though, if you look overhead, you can obviously see the wireless time is synced to the GPS unit. Daylight saving times is on. Alarm is not on. And as you can see, that flickering, that's the data pulses it's receiving from the real-time clock. So, you know, even though I don't have the spacers and the LED's not sitting flush, you can still see it. So I'm not going to spend the time trying to desolder it and resolder them up high. Plus, I've already disassembled this thing twice, and I don't want to wear it out because obviously it's self-tapped in laser cut acrylic, so it's going to wear out if I keep taking it apart. But I love the kit, and he has some other cool stuff like a spectrum analyzer, so probably not right away because this is a little bit expensive compared to other kits I've been doing. I'll probably wait a little, but eventually I'm probably going to get some of his other kits, like for example the spectrum analyzer, because that was really cool. They have Nixie tubes that are basically a bar graph, so he had a whole bunch of those in a row to make a spectrum analyzer, and it looks really, really cool. So this one, I just need to decide if I want to leave this here at home or if I want to take this to work and put it on my desk. So I don't know. Probably will take it to work because I don't know where I have room to put this right now, but it'll be cool to show off to all my coworkers. So let's see. So the LEDs stand off. That's one mistake I made. Another mistake is this is actually supposed to poke straight out, and he tells you in the instructions, leave, you know, 5mm gap, or I can't remember how many. I think it was 5. But he tells you how long of a gap to leave between this and the PCB, but But what I didn't realize is that you're supposed to leave it poking straight out. I thought he meant leave this much out and then fold it over. So anyways, it's supposed to poke out the bottom. That way it's getting outside air. And since it has feet, there's a gap underneath where air can get under. As you can see, it's reading 90 degrees. And it's actually 76 in here. So I need to go into the options menu and set a compensation to adjust it. Granted, I'm over here touching it, and it's got my body heat around it. That might have something to do with it, maybe, I don't know. But another thing, the supercapacitor, make sure, you know what, if you want to save yourself trouble, get a tiny piece of blue painter's tape and put it on the bottom side of your supercap. And then also make sure that it has a 1mm gap at least above the PCB. And when you do the solder blobs on the backside, maybe instead of blobbing it, get a little tiny piece of wire to put across it to help bridge, so you don't have to use as much solder to get the bridge going. That way you don't have to worry about solder coming through and bridging to the back of the supercap like I had, and then having it short. And then you have problems having it turn on. But other than that, I mean, you saw from the assembly video footage earlier that, I mean, it worked. It booted right up the very first try. So very, very awesome clock kit. Looks really, really good. There's tons of Nixie clock kits on the internet. You can find these on eBay for pretty cheap, but none of them look this good. This is arguably, in my opinion, one of the best looking ones out there. And so I think Jürgen Grau is his name, but he goes by the internet name Mr. Nixie. And so if you just Google search Mr. Nixie, you'll find his website, and he's got a ton of different clock kits and spectrum analyzer kits, and I think he even has like a headphone amp and some other cool stuff. So yeah, if you think this looks cool, just hit the link in my description and go pick one of these up. I guess that is it. I don't really know if there's anything else to show you. So, well, okay, here. This, I guess I showed you this in the video. So there's 3 versions of this, and it was a little tricky. That's kind of part of the trickiness with the German instructions, I guess, is that some of the stuff didn't translate perfectly, and it was a little confusing, and some of it's just not super detailed. When I read back through, it all made sense, and I realized I just needed to pay closer attention, I guess. So this one says GPS fix, and as you can see, it's not lit up. And the other one says on air, and it's not lit up, and it's plugged in. And so what I came to realize, I went to the website and I found another link that described more about this. And actually, I think the documentation that came with this also mentions it. There's 3 different versions of this kit, and I have version 3. In version 3, if it's connected, the GPS fix light will be off, which is really backwards and weird. But as soon as I read that, it made sense. I was like, okay, so I guess it is working. Because what worried me, if you look really closely, you see all these little through-hole spots for capacitors. C1, C4, C2, C6, and none of them are populated. It's like there are no decoupling caps on here. So I thought maybe that's causing noise and interference, and it's not getting a lock, and that's why it's not lighting up. But it turns out it's not getting a lock because, well, it is getting a lock. It's just the LED is actually off, and that's just how it works if you have the version 3, which is what this one is. And it only transmits for the first 9 minutes, and then after that I think it only transmits at certain intervals. And I think on the clock you can program it to update like once a day, or you can change the interval, I think. I don't know for sure. You'd have to download the instructions off the website and get details. I don't remember for sure. But the cool thing is, though, if you didn't gather this, and that was another tricky part of this, is that, you know, there's different standards depending on if you're in Europe or if you're in the US. Oh, there you go, it's transmitting now. If you get this GPS kit, this is just to power it. And this is an RF module, and this is the GPS receiver. This is an RF module, It's one of those 433 megahertz ones that everyone's been using in all their different electronics projects. That transmits to, see this green PCB right here? To that. You probably remember me looking at that because I saw it said antenna, and I was kind of confused as to why there'd be an antenna on that when the GPS module is right here. So I was kind of thinking, what the heck? That didn't make any sense. But it's actually the receiver module for the 433 megahertz RF. So what this does, this connects to the satellites. It gets satellite time, and then uses this to connect to the clock to transmit the time using RF. So you can mount this wherever you have really good GPS signal in your house, and it'll transmit the time to your clock, which you can put wherever you want. So that's what that was. But to do that, and the instructions in the English part didn't say to do solder blobs or solder bridges. So you just kind of had to figure that out. It said something like coding in quotes. It said, if you have and it uses tons of acronyms, and that was another confusing part. I'm not like a time guru. I don't have a fascination with watches and clocks and such, so I'm not really familiar with all the different acronyms when it comes to time. So it said if you have this 3-letter acronym, you need to do this or this. Here's the polarity, and here's the whatever. And it looked like a little truth table, like if you're using the external GPS, which I have right here, and I don't remember. I'd have to pull up the. That's just for using it. There was somewhere in the instructions, it basically told you there are 2 sets of solder bridges. It was like A, B, C, D, E, F, and for my situation, it was, I think you had to do B and C and D and F is what you blob together. But anyways, it wasn't super clear. I just kind of guessed, and it happened to work. And actually, it didn't work immediately. It won't work immediately unless you go into the options menu and set it to GPS, and then there's another options menu where you set the baud rate to whichever one. And this is version 3. There's 3 different versions, and each one I think has a different baud rate. This one is 4800 baud rate, I think. So that was another thing. Once I did that, boom, the time changed by itself, and it was way off, but it was like GMT time. I had to actually go add the offset, which is also in the options menu. And I think it also lets you choose the polarity of the offset, which direction we're changing for adding or subtracting. So, man, I've blabbered on a long time just for the finale, but it's kind of an expensive kit, so if you want to buy this, I figured I'll give you a ton of information so you know everything you need to know about it before you buy one. But if you're really electronic savvy and you think you can handle it, and you have $200 and some odd dollars in your wallet, it's not a cheap kit, but look at it. I mean, it's really good looking. So yeah, if you got the money burning a hole in your pocket, I'd say go ahead and buy it. And this, by the way, is an antenna. It also took me a while to figure that out. So I tried so many different things to try to get the time to sync, and plugging this in, setting it to GPS, setting the baud rate, replugging this so it goes back into the first 9 minutes where it's constantly transmitting. Boom, it synced. So that was kind of weird, but I think I've covered everything. I have blabbered on for a long time. Also, for anyone who's not familiar, Nixie tubes are VFD, vacuum fluorescent displays, and they're not like tube amps where they have a heater in them, so they don't get hot. These are very cool to the touch. And so, I know you've also heard that, you can disable that, by the way, if you think that's annoying, but I think it's kind of cool. It, once in a while, does a little slot machine thing. But they don't get hot to the touch at all. They're not even warm, so just in case you're wondering, because you probably see me touch them during the assembly with my hands. And I know there's this urban myth about not touching vacuum tubes with your bare hands because the oil's kind of like with incandescent light bulbs. I think it's all a bunch of baloney, but anyways, and you can do 12 or 24-hour time format. I set it to 12 just because that's kind of what we use in the States, but we use 24-hour format at work, and if I take it to work, I might actually just set it back to 24-hour format. And the colon, or the separators for hours, minutes, seconds, I don't know what you call that. They're not colons. I know there are colon Nixie tubes that do exist. I've seen them on eBay and some other websites, but in this case, they're just little dots, and it works fine. And I think somewhere in the options, you can set it to where one of these acts as a AM or PM designator, but I obviously don't have it set for that, so you just have to know that it's nighttime or daytime. So yeah, I've somehow rambled on for 30 minutes just talking about the finished product, but oh, I should probably turn the lights off so you can see what it looks like. Let me turn the bench and the room lights. I don't know how well that's actually turning out, because obviously cameras don't do well in the dark, and I'm recording this with an iPhone 6 Plus, so well, it looks okay on the screen, but I think that'll be a good stopping point. So I hope you enjoyed. I imagine by the time I cut this together into a video, it's going to be very long, so I'm sorry for the very long video, but it was this kind of a cool kit, a lot cooler than my usual, $2 eBay kit. So, yeah. If you like this video, stick around. I'll probably be uploading some more this week. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.